Alright everybody, welcome back to We Play Games. I'm Walker, and here we are in Humankind, about to play our last episode in our Humankind tutorial series, moving into the contemporary era. So as I've discussed in some of the other videos, I think it is important to identify what it is you think is going to be your way to end the game here in Humankind. I think generally speaking, you shouldn't try to maximize your fame 100% because then you're going to fall behind, or at least not be as far ahead in terms of your legacy traits and in terms of your resources that you can leverage against the AI. But what this means, of course, is that if you do that, if you make rapid progress in a couple of different eras, you're not going to be able to maximize your fame over the course of a full game, so you do need to close the game out. In this case, I think we're probably going to be ending the game through getting 21 stars in the contemporary era, if it turns out, just based off of the technologies and the resources available to us, that we can end the game by launching the mission to Mars. That's perfectly reasonable to do as well. But I do want to point out here that there are just a lot of competitive deeds. As a consequence of that, you do not have to get every single star in order to maintain your advantage in terms of fame. You can get lots of fame from building cultural wonders, from grabbing manufactories, and doing those competitive stars as well, and so there's lots of different ways for you to try to stay ahead of the AI in terms of fame, beyond, of course, just sitting around in one era forever and ever. But in this case, I think it's going to be very, very important for us to make it our way into the contemporary era ASAP for not just one reason, of course, that if we move into the contemporary era, we get to see all of our stars, but also by moving into the contemporary era, we're going to get access to the Swedes. And the Swedes, because of their legacy trait, as well as their building here, I think are generally one of the strongest in the contemporary era. There are, of course, a couple of very, very powerful cultures here in the contemporary era. The Soviets are notorious for just being outrageously powerful if you're going to do combat. Minus 20% industry cost does stack with the Aztec bonus, and of course plus 3 combat strength, as well as the combat strength from arms manufactories, means that you can just get outrageously powerful military units with the Soviets and crush people. But based off of what's going on the board, I don't think we're going to have the time necessary to eliminate all of the other AI, and we're also pretty friendly with some of them anyway, so I think it would be more flavorful for us to leave them around, and we'll go in a different direction. So of course the Swedes are a little different than a lot of the other cultures that you get access to with science affinity, because the +1 era available to research doesn't actually do anything. You don't get any real nice bonus there, but the collective minds bonus is fantastic and a great way to leverage extra things into science. And of course, Prize Science and Research Institute are both very, very good when it comes to just pressing out a science advantage ASAP, and a science advantage should be something that leverages all of the other resources at this point. If we can get way, way, way ahead on tech, it should be very easy for us to beat people, and as I said, we're probably going to end up having to declare war on green here. Not only is green way behind in terms of its eras and therefore limited on their technology, but they're also not particularly threatening when it comes to their fame, and because we're going to need to have expansionist stars and militarist stars, we're going to need to attack somebody. And while it could be teal because they're starting to threaten our position in terms of fame, you can tolerate a couple of AI that you're friendly with. It just kind of depends on the situation on the ground. But we're going to take Swedes, and then we're just going to max out our science ASAP. So one of the really nice things about Sweden, of course, is that you just get a nice big bonus to your research right away because of the legacy trait. But I think the biggest thing that I like about them is their emblematic district. You're just going to get outrageous amounts of science from them. This isn't even like the most I've seen. Generally, if you have a lot of districts because you picked up the pyramids, which we did miss in this game, you can have your research institutes coming down as 200 or 300 science all at once as you build them out. But in this case, we're only going to get like 130 to 140 for each research institute only, in air quotes. But that's not even like a big deal, because we should be able to plop these down and then of course build more districts inside of our cities. And as this gets you more science per district, all you really need to do in order to keep pressing out more science once you have research institutes on the board is build stuff. I think we're also going to take this as our opportunity to switch into inherited land, but in this case we actually do want to stay ahead on collectivism versus individualism in this case because we're so far down the individualism axis and therefore getting extra money on outposts. I think what we're actually going to do is we're going to go in here, we're going to grab nationalized industries first just for the extra farmer slot and extra food, which is a really big deal if you're trying to max out your agrarian stars, which if we're trying to do the 21 eras we do need. So we'll take nationalized industries first, then we'll go in here and cancel communal land, and then enact inherited land. And by doing it in that order, we're going to maintain our position there on that axis towards individualism and towards extra money, while also giving us the ability to just get enormous amounts of population and lots of jobs ASAP. And of course, because we did that before we picked up Civics Osmosis here, that actually kept the cost on that switch down, which although we're going to be, flooded with influence that we can't really use on so many outposts during this period because we managed to make it into inherited land, you still want to manage your influence relatively well, because influence of course allows you to pick up cultural wonders, and cultural wonders are going to be a great way for us to keep ahead on fame. So here you can see that the game actually highlights the different ways that you can end the game. As I said, we're probably going to be moving towards every contemporary era star, but there are some other ways for us to get there. I think most likely our backup game is probably going to be sending a mission to Mars. I think it would be pretty difficult for us to vassalize everybody in this game just because some of these empires are pretty large, and that's a function of just the size of the map that you're playing on. The tighter the map that you're playing on, the easier it's going to be for you to end the game by just vassalizing or conquering everybody. But in this case, we've actually defeated the Nubians, and we've defeated them once and for all. So we're going to take both of their cities, almost certainly just going to merge those into some of our existing cities here, because they're not going to be able to grow past one tile, therefore be pretty limited in their value. But it will take those two, we'll get a whole lot of gold here, because we had these existing demands prior to the war, and then we'll get war reparations, and all this cash, of course, because we switched into inherited land, is going to allow us to attach these cities very, very quickly by just absorbing them. And there we go. Finally, the Nubians are eliminated, so they're not going to be able to stick around forever. Oh, interesting. So we're getting Civics Osmosis pushing us back into communal land. Now, mind you, we do probably want to be in inherited land long-term whenever we're in this war over here against green, but I think we're going to go ahead and accept it just because our stability is kind of sketchy in some of these cities at the moment. Once we finish microbiology, our stability will get a little easier to maintain. But because we have nationalized laws in place, we actually have a lot of extra jobs here. So getting extra food, I think, is probably fine. We'll just bounce back and forth as we need to. And so there you can see in just like a couple of turns, we've managed to get our research from like 2,000 to 3,000 up to almost 9,000. That's just the power of the Swedes. Like, they get a lot of science really, really quickly, especially if you're willing to just buy out a couple of your research institutes. It's not too hard to get an absurd amount of science going. And then, of course, that absurd amount of science will help us power through some of these other stars ASAP. So here's an important thing that we can do in the contemporary era to just try to stay ahead on stars. So we're going to have a kind of slow progress here in terms of our Estate stars. You see we need 12,000 Estate in order to get to our first star on the Estate track, and we're only at 1.4k right now. But what we can do is we can actually evolve an outpost into a city here, and then immediately liberate it. And by liberating it and then immediately starting to bribe it out, what we can actually do is get to client state. As this city grows, the client state influence that it gets to us is going to go higher and higher and higher. We'll get more and more resources, and that, generally speaking, is going to help us push through the contemporary era stars ASAP. Well, it looks like the polls here have a different idea for how this endgame is going to go out. So we were planning on attacking the green player here and trying to knock the Spanish down a little bit, because they are starting to get up there in terms of fame, and knocking more players out is generally better. But unfortunately / fortunately, the teal player here has been gradually reducing our treaties with them. Like, they kicked us out of being able to trade everything, and they also removed the non-aggression pact. So I think what we're actually going to do here is we're going to bring our armies back, and then we're going to prepare for a war against teal. A war against teal obviously is going to be a little bit scarier than a war against the green player, because they do have a little more fame and they have a little more resources because we've been trading with them so much. But of course, course, we're all on the same continent, and one of the easiest ways to get fame here would be for us to conquer the entire continent if it's available. But that's where you kind of want to be, just flexible but strong in the late game here. Do whatever you can to not narrowly focus on only one outcome, because there are a lot of different outcomes that you can get here in terms of Humankind, and you want to pay attention to what's going on in terms of diplomacy. If we had declared war on Green there, and then had all of our troops over on the other continent, and then Teal attacked us, that could actually have been pretty dangerous. So I like bringing our guys back and putting Teal in their place. So here, because it looks like almost certainly going to be going to war with this long-term friend of ours, the Zulu, we are going to try to prioritize our own internal stability outside of all the resources that we've been trading for, so that way when we go to war, it's not going to be catastrophic. Now, fortunately, when it comes to technology here in the contemporary era, there are a lot of technologies that get you extra stability per population. If you can combine that with getting a lot of just generalized resources, you can get a lot of stability even without access to trade networks. So like uranium enrichment is going to get you extra resources through getting you more resources that you can exploit. Same with aerial warfare, same with combustion engine. And if you can funnel the extra resources that you get from those exploitations into the technologies that allow you to get nice little bonuses, like nuclear fission is sort of like the coal of the contemporary era, where just the more nuclear fission uranium you get access to, the more that you get out of each district that you build. And that's true here with power lines as well. And so you should be able to funnel lots and lots of resources together to allow you to get past any fights that you might have to have with your long-term trade partners in the event that they elect to betray you. Now, they are trying to do this probably because they view us as their top competition here, right? They're at 13.4k fame, but this is just not going to go particularly well for them. Our military is pretty big, and actually I think we're probably going to be able to attack this turn, and because we have 42,000 gold, we're going to be able to go through and just upgrade just an absolute crap ton of units all at once, and that should put Teal in their place here just in short order. So as it turns out, here on turn 116, we are going to be able to simultaneously finish the Mars colony project, and we are insanely close to finishing out the technology tree here, as well as being very, very close to finishing out the estate stars. So in this game, we're actually going to end up hitting like 3 victory conditions basically at the same time. Obviously, it's like a little more efficient if you can fit in one of the other victory conditions a little earlier, but in this case, because we were just so far ahead of all the other competition in terms of fame, and because Teal was just like aggressive towards us for no particularly good reason when we had tanks, it was a pretty easy sweep for us to just march through here and just like instant resolve everything, crush them with our tanks and our siege weapons. But that is something that you can do in the contemporary era, like just find whatever victory condition is open to you, but in this case it was all of them. But that's just, that's the way Humankind works sometimes. But that's basically the goal here when it comes to Humankind, is just try to get ahead in resources and then leverage being ahead in resources into becoming ahead in fame, and then use your position as being ahead in resources to just bully the AI in the event that they try to start threatening your position as the number one power here on Earth. Yep, there it is. We managed to finish all of the technologies and the Mars space race and the estate stars all in the same turn 118. But you can definitely finish a little faster than that. It really does just depend on your start and also your goal. I think generally speaking, there's a lot of diminishing returns for spending too long trying to accumulate fame. You can see here we're at 21,000 and our closest competition, Teal, is at 13.8, and for that matter, I think Teal is probably gonna go extinct sooner rather than later because they don't have any land, and for that matter, there's no land for them to get onto. So don't worry too much about fame in a longer game like this. If you're trying to just get ahead of the AI, stay in that position and then leverage that position to just win, because that is generally the way things go here in Humankind. That said, I think that fame is like a really interesting mechanic, and I'm glad that Amplitude Studios is playing around with it. I think that generally speaking, it would play a little better if the AI were a little less obsessed with getting as many era stars in each era, because it just results in AI that just kind of like hangs out and does nothing in the mid to late game. Like, we can check to see what era everybody's in, but I suspect that there are going to be a lot of AI here that haven't even made it into the later eras. Yeah, just looking through it, it looks like there's a bunch that are still on 4 and 5. So here, turn 119, that's the end of the game. But if you learned something here, let me know. If you're interested in more Humankind content, let me know that as well. I'm going to be moving over to after the end, just so, like, as soon as this is finished editing, because I do want to get some more stuff done in the after the end world. But I love Humankind. I think it's a really great game. I think Amplitude Studios has done a good job with it, and I'd like to support it long term on the channel, assuming that there's an interest in it. All right, that's Walker. Take care.